You know that feeling of floating between two worlds. I lay there, lying on the cold hospital gurney, feeling the sedation pull me into a deep, dark abyss. My eyes felt heavy, my breathing slowed, and my last awareness was that in minutes they would be opening my body to extract my kidney. A kidney that would save my only son, my Marcus, from imminent death. I was at peace with it. I would do it again 1,000 times. But then, oh my God, then something happened that seemed straight out of a horror movie. The door exploded, literally exploded, and my 9-year-old grandson burst into that sterile room like a desperate hurricane. His face was bathed in tears, his eyes wide with pure panic. He screamed with a strength I hadn't even known existed in that tiny body. "Grandma, stop. I need to tell you a secret." In that moment, as doctors and nurses tried to restrain him, as my consciousness fought against the powerful sedatives, he unleashed words that detonated my reality like a nuclear bomb. A secret so monstrous, so unbelievable, that it would change absolutely everything I thought I knew about my own family. And when I finally understood the full extent of the betrayal, well, they discovered they had completely underestimated the woman they thought they could manipulate. Hey, before we dive into this shocking story, I really need your help. Please subscribe to the channel now and don't forget to activate the notification bell by selecting the all option in the notifications. Your subscription is essential for this work to continue growing and reaching more people. Every subscriber makes a huge difference. I also ask that you share this true and impactful story with your friends, family, colleagues. Everyone needs to hear this. And tell me below, from which country and city are you watching right now? Now stay tuned until the end, because the outcome will leave you absolutely speechless. My name is Aisha, and if someone had told me a year ago that I would experience what I am about to tell you, I would have laughed in their face. It was a seemingly ordinary Tuesday when my phone rang at 6:43 in the morning. I answered it still drowsy, never imagining that that call would divide my life into before and after. Aisha, Jennifer's voice, my daughter-in-law, was unrecognizable, choked with hysterical sobs. "You need to come immediately. It's Marcus. My God, Aisha, it's Marcus." My blood froze instantly. I jumped out of bed, my heart already racing in panic. "What happened?" "Jennifer, breathe and tell me what happened," I demanded, already desperately searching for clothes to wear. "He passed out at work. He wouldn't wake up. The ambulance took him. We're at Memorial Hospital. Aisha, the doctors are saying terrible things," she managed to say between convulsive sobs. I don't remember hanging up the phone. I don't remember getting dressed or locking the house. The next clear memory is driving like a madwoman through the still empty streets of dawn, fear consuming me completely. Marcus was everything to me. My only son, my most precious gift. The reason I kept living and fighting after my husband passed away 12 years ago. I arrived at the hospital in record time, abandoning my car in any parking spot I could find. I ran through the halls following the signs to the emergency room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear every beat echoing in my ears. Jennifer stood in the third-floor hallway, completely devastated. Her blonde hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared with tears, her hands shaking violently. When she saw me, she literally collapsed into my arms, her body shaking with sobs. "Aisha, his kidneys are failing. Acute renal failure. The doctor said it's critical." "Critical," she managed to say between spasms of crying. I felt my legs nearly give out, but I forced myself to stand firm. Someone had to be strong there, and that was always my job. To be the rock, the anchor, the one that holds everything together when the world is falling apart. "Take me to him," I ordered, my voice surprisingly calm despite the chaos inside. She led me to a room where my son was surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. Marcus was pale as a sheet, tubes sticking out of his arms, a heart monitor above his bed showing rhythms I couldn't understand but which seemed erratic. His eyes were closed, and he looked 10 years older than I'd last seen him, just 3 days ago. I approached slowly, taking her cold hand in mine. It was limp, lifeless. "Marcus," I called softly, my voice breaking. "Son, it's Mommy. I'm here." His eyes opened slowly, taking a few seconds to focus on me. When he finally recognized me, his lips tried to form a weak smile. "Mom." It was almost a whisper. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for scaring you like that." "Shh, don't talk nonsense," I replied, fighting fiercely against the tears that threatened to spill over. "You'll be okay. We'll figure this out, like we always do. Together." But even as I said those words, a voice in the back of my mind whispered that this time was different. That this time, the situation was far more serious than anything we'd faced before. A doctor entered the room shortly afterward. Dr. Richardson was a tall man in his 50s, with graying hair and a serious expression that did not promise good news. "Ma'am, can we talk in the hallway?" he asked formally. Jennifer and I followed him outside, my stomach churning in anxious anticipation. "I'll be blunt because I believe you deserve honesty," he began, crossing his arms over the clipboard he carried. "Marcus is in acute kidney failure. Test results show that both kidneys are severely damaged. We've started emergency dialysis, but this is only a temporary measure." "What exactly does that mean?" I asked, though I already had a terrible idea of the answer. It means that without a kidney transplant, Marcus's life expectancy is limited. We can keep him on dialysis, yes, but his quality of life will be drastically affected, and that's still no guarantee of a long-term outcome," he explained seriously. "A transplant," Jennifer repeated weakly. "But the waiting lists, I hear they're long." "Extremely long," Dr. Richardson confirmed. "For someone in Marcus's condition, we're talking potentially years. That's why we generally recommend seeking living donors whenever possible. Direct family members usually have a better chance of matching." I didn't think twice. "Run the tests on me," I declared immediately. "Now, today." "Aisha?" Jennifer began, but I held up my hand, interrupting her. "It's not an argument. I'm his mother. If anyone should be tested first, it's me, period." Dr. Richardson nodded approvingly. "I'll order compatibility tests immediately. We'll need to run a full battery of tests, blood, tissue, and a general health assessment. It will take a few days to get the results." The following days were a blur of anxiety and hope. Marcus remained hospitalized, hooked up to dialysis machines that did the work his kidneys could no longer do. I visited him every day, bringing him his favorite foods even though I knew he could barely eat, reading to him and talking about good memories to keep him positive. Jennifer was always there too, of course. She rarely left her husband's side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair next to his bed. I admired her dedication, her devotion. He thought about how lucky Marcus was to find someone who loved him so much. How wrong I was. How terribly, horribly wrong I was. During this time, I began to notice little oddities. Nothing too obvious, just details that didn't quite add up. Jennifer would often avoid my gaze. When I entered the room and they were talking, they would stop abruptly. Several times, I caught Jennifer talking quietly on the phone in the hallways, quickly hanging up when she saw me approaching. But I rationalized everything. Of course she was stressed. Of course there were private conversations between husband and wife that weren't my business. I was being paranoid, letting the tense situation affect my perception. The third day after the exams, Dr. Richardson called me into his office. Jennifer was with Marcus, so I went alone, my heart racing with anticipation. "I have great news," he began with a rare smile. "You're a match, extremely compatible, in fact. It's rare to see such a perfect match, even between mother and son." The relief I felt was indescribable. Tears finally streamed down my face, tears of gratitude and hope. "So can I donate? Can I save my child?" I asked. already knowing the answer but needing to hear it anyway. Yes. If you're absolutely certain of this decision, we can schedule the surgery for next week. That will give us time to prepare everything properly, he replied. I'm more than certain. Schedule the surgery as soon as possible, I stated without hesitation. When I told Marcus, he cried. For the first time since it all began, I saw my strong, proud son completely fall apart, clinging to me like he had when he was a child. Mom, I can't accept this from you. What if something goes wrong? What if you... He began. But I placed my finger over his lips. Marcus Anthony. I used his full name the way I always did when I wanted him to take me seriously. Do you think there's any chance in the universe that I wouldn't do this? You're my son. I'd give my life for you without a second thought. A kidney. That's the bare minimum. Thank you, he whispered, hugging me tightly. Thank you for being the best mother in the world. Jennifer also expressed effusive gratitude, hugging me and calling me her savior, her angel. Her words were beautiful, filled with seemingly genuine emotion. I believed every syllable. We scheduled the surgery for 7 days later. We had a week to organize everything, make the final preparations, and ensure that both Marcus and I were in the best possible condition for the procedure. This week, I decided to spend more time with my grandson, Noah. He was visibly upset about his father's situation, so I thought it would be good to give him some extra attention. Noah was always special. From a young age, he demonstrated a keen intelligence and an uncommon sensitivity. At 9, he read books I only discovered as a teenager, asked profound questions about life and death, and demonstrated empathy beyond his years. But that week, something was different about him. Noah was too quiet, too withdrawn. His eyes, usually bright and curious, seemed to carry a terrible weight. Several times I caught him watching me with a tortured expression, as if he desperately wanted to tell me something but couldn't. 3 days before the surgery, I sat with him in the park near our home. It was a beautiful day, with gentle sunshine and a pleasant breeze. We bought ice cream and settled on a bench under a large tree. Noah, honey, are you okay? I asked gently, putting my arm around her small shoulders. He bit his lip, staring at the ice cream melting in his hand. Grandma, he began hesitantly. What would you do if you found out someone you loved was doing something very, very wrong? The question caught me off guard. Well, it depends on what that someone is doing. Why do you ask? It's just a question, he answered quickly, looking away. Just curious. Noah, I gently turned his face so he was looking at me. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. You can always tell me anything. For a moment, I thought he was going to speak. I saw the conflict in his eyes, the internal struggle. But then he just shook his head and forced a smile. It's nothing, Grandma. I'm just worried about Dad. I accepted the answer, though something inside me knew there was more, much more. But I didn't press. Children need space, I thought. He would speak when he was ready. 2 days before the surgery, I was at home organizing some things when Jennifer showed up unexpectedly. She seemed agitated and nervous. Aisha, can we talk? He asked, wringing his hands anxiously. Sure, come in. Want some coffee? I offered, noticing how she looked around as if searching for something. No, thank you. I just wanted to thank you again for what you're doing. It's so much more than we deserve, she said. But there was something strange in her voice, something I couldn't quite place. Jennifer, he's my son. You don't have to thank me for that, I replied calmly. I know, but still. She paused, taking a deep breath. Aisha, are you absolutely sure about this? Because once you start, there's no going back. Franzi each, of course I'm sure. Why are you asking this now? I want to make sure you fully understand the risks, that you know what you're getting into, she insisted, avoiding my gaze. Jennifer, is everything okay? You seem strange, I commented, starting to get worried. I'm fine. Perfectly fine, she answered too quickly, too loudly. I have to go. Just wanted to confirm that. Bye. And she hurried off, leaving me confused and slightly disturbed. But again, I rationalized. She's under immense pressure, I thought. It's natural to be emotional and confused. The night before the surgery was long and sleepless. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. I mentally reviewed my life, the choices I'd made, the path I'd taken. I thought about Marcus as a baby, holding him for the first time, every milestone in his life. I thought about my late husband and how proud he would have been of me doing this. I said a silent prayer, asking for strength and protection. I asked for everything to go well, for Marcus to regain his health, for our family to move forward. It was all I wanted, all any mother would want. In the morning, I woke up before my alarm. I took a long shower, put on comfortable clothes, and packed a small bag with my personal items. I looked in the mirror and gave myself an encouraging nod. You can do it, Aisha. You're strong. It'll be okay. I drove to the hospital under a gray sky that threatened rain. Marcus was already there, being prepared. He gave me a long hug when I arrived. Mom, I love you so much, he said, his voice breaking. I don't know how to thank you for this, for everything, for always being there for me. You don't need to thank me, my love. That's what mothers do. We'll always be here, always, I promised, kissing his forehead like I used to do when he was little. Jennifer was there too, but she kept an awkward distance. She looked pale, almost sickly. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, biting her lip nervously. Something was definitely wrong with her, but I didn't have the mental energy to deal with it right now. I had to focus on the surgery, on keeping my courage up. A nurse named Susan came to get me for final preparations. She was a warm, middle-aged woman with kind eyes that conveyed immediate comfort. Ready to be a hero, she teased as she led me to the pre-surgery room. As ready as I can be, I replied with a nervous smile. In the room, they had me change into a light blue hospital gown. Susan installed the IV line with professional skill, explaining each step of the upcoming procedure. We'll administer sedation soon. You'll start to feel drowsy and relaxed. It's completely normal. When you wake up, it will all be over, and you will have saved your son's life, she explained with a comforting smile. I felt the first dose of medicine enter my veins. A warm sensation spread through my arm, then through my body. My eyelids began to feel heavy, my thoughts growing hazy around the edges. Everything will be fine, I heard Susan say, her voice sounding distant even though she was standing right next to me. Just relax and let the medication take effect. I closed my eyes, giving in to the sensation. Images flashed through my mind like a blurry film. Baby Marcus, toddler Marcus, teenage Marcus, adult Marcus, my son, my precious son. Soon, he would be cured. Soon, everything would return to normal. I was almost completely unconscious when it happened. The crash was so loud it penetrated the sedative haze. An explosive sound of a door being forced open, wood splintering, metal being forced apart. Immediately, cries of alarm followed. I fought the sedation, forcing my eyes open, even though every fiber of my being wanted nothing more than to sleep. My vision was blurry, hazy, but I recognized the small figure that had burst into the room like a desperate tornado. Noah, my grandson, stood there, his small face contorted in absolute panic and despair. Tears streamed freely down his rosy cheeks, his body shaking violently. Security guards appeared behind him, trying to grab him, but he dodged them with agility fueled by pure adrenaline. "Grandma!" he shouted, his voice piercing the air. "Grandma, don't do it!" I tried to speak, move, anything, but my body wouldn't respond. The sedation had locked me in a kind of paralysis, where I was conscious but helpless. "I need to tell you a secret," Noah yelled again, finally reaching my gurney. His small hands gripped the side rails with desperate force. You can't do the surgery. Please, Grandma. Dr. Richardson appeared immediately, his authoritative voice cutting through the chaos. Security, get this boy out of here immediately. We're delaying a critical procedure. No, they don't understand. Noah was crying convulsively now. She's being deceived. Everyone is deceiving her. Those words pierced through the fog. Mistaken? What was he talking about? The boy is clearly traumatized and confused. Jennifer's voice cut through the air, and then she was there too, trying to pull Noah away from me. Noah, honey, Grandma's helping Daddy. Don't you want Daddy to get better? It's not like that, he shouted, struggling against her grip. It's not true. I heard you. I heard everything you had planned. My heart, even under sedation, raced wildly. Susan was beside me, checking monitors that must have been going crazy with my sudden vital signs. What did you hear, Noah? Dr. Richardson asked, his voice changing from authority to concerned curiosity. And I heard Mommy and Daddy talking, Noah sobbed desperately. 3 weeks ago, it was late and they thought I was sleeping, but I heard everything. Noah, shut up. Jennifer tried to silence him, but her voice was panicking. They talked about money, Noah continued, the words pouring out of him like a broken dam. They talked about a rich man who was going to pay a lot of money for Grandma's kidney. That Dad wasn't supposed to use. The silence that fell over the room was deafening. Everyone present froze. Susan dropped the equipment she was holding, the sound of metal hitting the floor echoing. Dr. Richardson went pale as a sheet. Jennifer was white as snow, her eyes wide with utter terror, and I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. This is ridiculous, Jennifer stammered, but her voice was shaking uncontrollably. The boy doesn't know what he's saying. He heard wrong. Marcus is dying. Dying! But Noah didn't stop. I didn't hear wrong. He insisted vehemently. Mommy said, "Are you sure we can do it without her finding out?" And Daddy said, "She'll be sedated. She won't know anything." The buyer already wired half the payment, $500,000. Jennifer, $500,000 for my kidney. Adrenaline began to burn through the sedation, giving me a moment of piercing clarity. I forced my mouth to move, my tongue heavy with words. "Stop the surgery," I managed to whisper hoarsely. "Aisha, don't be foolish." Jennifer tried desperately. "Your son is going to die. Do you want Marcus to die?" But Dr. Richardson was already moving. His expression transformed from confused to horrified to furiously professional. "Cancel the procedure immediately," he ordered sharply. "Susan, stop the sedation. Security, restrain this woman, and someone get Marcus here, now." "You don't understand." Jennifer was going into complete hysteria. "Marcus needs that kidney." "If Marcus needs a kidney to save his life, he will receive one the proper and legal way," Dr. Richardson said coldly. "Not through medical fraud and organ trafficking." Organ trafficking. The words echoed in my mind, beginning to clear. Organ trafficking. My own son was going. They were going. I couldn't even complete the thought. It was too grotesque, too monstrous to process. Noah was still holding my stretcher, crying, but now they were tears of relief. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he sobbed. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was scared. Mom said if I said anything, you'd never love me again. She said it was for your own good. But I knew deep down it was wrong. Very wrong." I managed to lift a heavy hand and touch his face. "You saved my life," I whispered with difficulty. The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity. Susan reversed the sedation, giving me medication to wake up faster. Security guards restrained Jennifer, who alternated between shouting threats and begging for understanding. More doctors arrived, as did the hospital administrator and, eventually, 2 police officers. And then they brought Marcus. He was wheeled into the room, still connected to the portable dialysis machine. But when his eyes fell on the scene, Noah crying beside me, Jennifer being restrained, police officers present, his expression completely fell. It wasn't the expression of someone innocently confused by the accusation. It was the expression of someone whose fraud had just been exposed. "Mom," he began, but his voice was weak, defeated. I was feeling more alert now, the reversal medication kicking in. I managed to sit up partially on the gurney, propped up by pillows Susan placed behind me. "Is it true?" I asked, each word clear and sharp as broken glass. "Look me in the eyes, Marcus Anthony, and tell me, is your son lying?" Marcus couldn't look at me. He stared at the floor, his hands trembling in his lap. His silence was the most devastating confirmation I could have received. "Oh my God," I whispered, reality finally solidifying in my mind. "You were going to do this. You were really going to do this to me." "Mom, let me explain," he finally said, looking up with desperate eyes. "It's not like you think." "So what's it like?" My voice came out at a volume that surprised even me. "What exactly is it, Marcus?" "Because the way I understand it, you and your wife planned to sedate me, remove my organ, and sell it on the black market. Correct me if I'm wrong." "We were desperate," Jennifer screamed, still struggling against the guards holding her. "You don't understand, Aisha. The debts. We lost everything. The house is in foreclosure. We have creditors chasing us when the buyer made the offer." "What buyer?" Dr. Richardson interrupted sharply. Jennifer fell silent abruptly, realizing she had said too much. One of the police officers stepped forward. "I think we'd all better sit down and talk, at length," he said authoritatively. What followed were hours of interrogations, revelations, and mounting horror. Sitting in a hospital conference room, now fully lucid but wishing I were still under sedation to avoid the emotional pain, I heard the whole sordid story. Marcus did have kidney problems. That was true. But it wasn't terminal. It wasn't urgent, as they had made it out to be. The doctors had recommended regular dialysis and being put on the transplant waiting list, a standard procedure that could have left him living for years until a compatible donor was found. But Marcus and Jennifer had other problems, massive financial problems they'd hidden from everyone. Gambling debts, mainly. Marcus had developed a serious addiction to online gambling, losing astronomical amounts. Loans from loan sharks, mortgage arrears, maxed out credit cards. They were on the brink of complete financial ruin when a black market organ broker found them through the circles they frequented, trying to make a quick buck. The offer was simple and horrific: $500,000 for a healthy, compatible kidney. So they devised their plan: dramatically exaggerate Marcus's condition to create urgency, emotionally manipulate me into volunteering my kidney. I would be sedated, cut open, and then the kidney would be diverted to the buyer instead of Marcus. Marcus would eventually receive a kidney as well. From an unrelated deceased donor the broker would arrange through illegal channels to maintain the charade. I would wake up thinking I had saved my son, never knowing that my organ had gone to an unscrupulous billionaire in another state. It was so meticulously planned, so coldly calculated, so utterly monstrous. "We were going to compensate you," Marcus argued weakly. "With the money, we were going to make sure you had everything you needed, top-notch medical care, a better home, anything." "Compense me," I exploded, my voice echoing around the room. "How do you make up for treating your own mother like merchandise? How do you make up for premeditated mutilation? How do you make up for betrayal of this magnitude?" I didn't know what to do, he defended himself pathetically. The loan sharks were threatening to hurt Jennifer, hurt Noah. I panicked. "Then you should have come to me," I screamed. "You should have been honest about your debts. You should have asked for help. I would have found a way, but instead you chose to see me as an object, as something to be used and discarded." Marcus started to cry, but I didn't feel sorry for him. I couldn't. The betrayal was too deep. It cut too deeply. The investigation continued. They discovered the buyer, a wealthy and unscrupulous executive who had enough money to buy organs illegally instead of waiting in line like any other ordinary person. They discovered the broker, a criminal with an extensive history of organ trafficking. They uncovered the entire network. Marcus and Jennifer were immediately arrested. The charges were extensive: conspiracy to commit medical fraud, attempted organ trafficking, financial fraud, and endangering the lives of others, among others. Dr. Richardson took me for a full exam to make sure the partial sedation hadn't caused any problems. Physically, I was fine. Emotionally, I was a wreck. Noah stayed with me through it all, my brave little grandson who risked everything to save me. He was traumatized, exhausted, but also relieved to finally have the terrible secret he'd been carrying told. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I asked gently when we were finally alone in a quiet room. "I wanted to," he confessed, his voice small. "Every day I wanted to, but Mom, she said things. She said you were going to die anyway because you're old. She said Dad needed the money more than you needed 2 kidneys. She said I was selfish for not wanting to help save our family from ruin." My heart broke for him. "She confused me," he continued, tears welling up in his eyes. "I'm just a kid. I didn't know if they were right, if maybe I was wrong for feeling bad. But then I saw you being wheeled into surgery, and suddenly everything became clear. I couldn't let it go. I just couldn't." I hugged him tightly, this little boy who demonstrated more moral integrity than the adults around him. "You did the right thing, Noah, the bravest and most right thing possible," I assured him. "And no matter what happens now, know that your grandmother is immensely proud of you." The social workers eventually arrived. With both parents in custody and facing criminal charges, they needed to decide where Noah would stay. I didn't hesitate. "He's staying with me," I declared firmly. "I'm his grandmother, his closest available relative, and there's no way he's going anywhere else." Fortunately, they agreed. Noah would need to be placed under my temporary guardianship until the case was resolved, but everyone seemed to understand that it was the best solution. I took my grandson home that night, both of us physically and emotionally exhausted. I made his favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with chicken tenders. We watched an animated movie of his choosing, neither of us really paying attention, just needing each other's presence. Before going to sleep, he hugged me at the door of the guest room that I quickly turned into his. "Grandma, do you still love Daddy, even after everything?" he asked hesitantly. It was a fair question, one I was struggling to answer myself. "I don't know, dear," I answered honestly. "Part of me will always love the boy he was. But the man he became, the man capable of doing what he planned, I don't know if I can love that person." Noah nodded as if he understood, though I doubted he really could at his age. "I think he needs to learn that actions have consequences," I added, "and this time, the consequences will be severe." The weeks that followed were a bureaucratic and emotional nightmare. The media picked up the story, turning it into a national sensation. Mother almost victimized by her own son in organ trafficking scheme. Child hero saves grandmother from horrible fate. The dark side of the organ trade exposed. Reporters camped out on my doorstep. My phone rang incessantly with interview requests. Documentary producers wanted to tell my story. It was exhausting and invasive. I refused everything. I didn't want my pain turned into entertainment. I didn't want Noah to be further traumatized by public attention. We just wanted peace to process and heal. Marcus sent me letters from prison. The first arrived 2 weeks after his arrest. I opened it with trembling hands, not knowing what to expect. It was pathetic. Page after page of excuses, justifications, self-pity. He blamed his gambling addiction. He blamed Jennifer for persuading him. He blamed the loan sharks for threatening them. He blamed society for not offering help. He blamed everyone but himself. At no point did he truly take full responsibility. At no point did he genuinely acknowledge the monstrosity of what he had planned. I put the letter in a box in the attic without answering it. More letters came. Some were different, bitter, blaming me for abandoning him in his time of need, how cold I was for not visiting him, how cruel I was for not publicly defending him, how it was all my fault for not noticing his financial problems and offering help before things got this bad. The audacity of victim blaming was astonishing. Even while arrested, facing years in prison, Marcus couldn't see that he, and he alone, had created this situation. All the letters went to the same box. I didn't answer any of them. Jennifer also tried to contact me through her lawyer. She asked me to testify on her behalf, claiming that she was coerced by Marcus, that she herself was a victim of his controlling behavior, that she would never have suggested such a scheme of her own free will. It was a lie. The investigation clearly revealed that Jennifer not only agreed to the plan, she was instrumental in its creation. She was the one who initially contacted the broker. She was the one who crafted the details to mislead the doctors about the severity of Marcus's condition. She was the one who threatened Noah to keep him silent. I refused to offer any help. She had made her choices. Now she would live with them. The trial took place 4 months after the incident. It was quick. With the overwhelming evidence, there wasn't much the defense could do. Text messages between Marcus and Jennifer discussing the plan. Records of the buyer's bank transfers. Recorded conversations with the broker. Testimonies from doctors who were horrified to discover how they had almost been unwitting accomplices. And Noah's testimony. My grandson, so small and brave, sat in the witness chair and recounted everything he heard that night. His voice trembled, but he didn't waver. He told the complete truth. I saw Marcus cry when Noah testified, but I don't know if the tears were of genuine remorse or just self-pity at being exposed by his own son. The verdict came quickly, guilty on all counts. The sentence, 8 years in prison for each, plus hefty fines to ensure they never profited from the story. Permanent loss of parental rights over Noah. A lifetime ban on any involvement with the healthcare system. When the judge banged the gavel, I felt relief, not joy, not the satisfaction of revenge, just relief that it was finally over. Noah, sitting next to me in the gallery, shook my hand. "It's over, Grandma," he whispered. "Yes, my love," I replied. "It's over." But in truth, it was just the beginning to rebuild our lives from the ruins of this devastating betrayal. The following months were spent healing slowly. Noah began therapy with a child psychologist specializing in family trauma. She was wonderful, helping him process the events, understand that none of what happened was his fault, and learn to trust again. I also went to therapy. I realized I needed to process the betrayal, the grief over the lost relationship with my son, the guilt I felt even though I knew rationally that none of it was my responsibility. Slowly, Noah began to blossom. Free from the toxic environment his parents had created, he became a child again. His grades improved. He made new friends. He laughed more often. The sparkle returned to his eyes. I threw myself into it completely. We moved house. The old place had too many memories, too many reporters at the door. We found a cozy place in a quiet neighborhood with a good school and a park nearby. I established a new routine. We had breakfast together every day. I took him to and from school. Afternoons were for homework and playtime, family dinners, just the two of us. Weekends were for adventures, museums, zoos, parks, movies. I discovered that being a full-time mom again in my later years was exhausting, but also deeply rewarding. Noah gave me renewed purpose, a reason to wake up energized every morning. A year after the incident, we were at the park on a sunny Saturday. Noah was playing on a swing, laughing loudly when he went too high. I watched him, my heart swelling with love and pride. A woman approached the bench where I was sitting. She was in her 40s, with a kind expression. "Excuse me, you're Aisha, aren't you?" she asked politely. My first instinct was to back away. I was still sensitive about public attention, but something about his energy felt safe. Yes, I replied cautiously. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, surprising me. I know you didn't want the media attention, but your story saved me. What do you mean? I asked, confused. My sister was pressuring me to donate a kidney to her, she explained. She said we would die without it, but something felt wrong. After her story came to light, I investigated further. I discovered she was lying about the severity of her condition. She wanted to use the kidney as collateral to take out a loan from loan sharks, if you can believe it. My eyes widened in shock. Your courage in exposing what happened, in not protecting your son despite everything, gave me the courage to say no, she continued, to set boundaries. You saved more than just yourself. You saved people like me from being similarly exploited. Your words struck a chord with me. I had never thought of my experience as something that could help others. Thank you for telling me this, she said sincerely. It means more than you know. She smiled, gently squeezed my hand, and left. But the encounter stayed with me. Maybe there was purpose in all this pain. Maybe other people needed to know that it was okay to set boundaries, even with family. That love didn't mean allowing abuse or exploitation. I began accepting speaking engagements, not for sensationalist programs, but for support groups, victims, organizations, and medical ethics conferences. I shared my story not to relive the trauma, but to educate and empower. Noah supported me, saying he was proud of me for turning something terrible into something constructive. 2 years after the incident, I visited my late husband's grave for the first time. I had avoided going, carrying irrational shame about what our son had become. I knelt on the soft grass, brushing leaves from the headstone. Our boy has disappointed us deeply, I whispered. He betrayed everything we tried to teach him, but your grandson, David, your grandson is extraordinary. He has your courage, your integrity, your sense of right and wrong. He saved my life not only physically, but emotionally. He gave me reason to carry on when all seemed lost. The wind blew gently, rustling the leaves on the surrounding trees. I chose to believe it was my husband listening to me, approving. I hope you're proud of him wherever you are, I continued, because I am, terribly, immensely proud. Marcus continued to send occasional letters from prison. The tone changed over time. The first few were defensive and self-pitying, then they became bitter and accusatory. But recently, they seemed different. The most recent one arrived 3 weeks ago. I opened it with my usual reluctance, prepared for further justification or manipulation. But it was different, shorter, simpler. Mother, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect a reply, but I need to write anyway. I'm in therapy here. Real therapy, not just to show off to the parole board, and for the first time, I'm actually facing what I did. Not just the actions, but the mindset that led to them. You were right. Everything I said before was just excuses, blaming others, minimizing, justifying. I never took real responsibility. So I admit it now. What I planned to do to you was monstrous, inexplicable, unforgivable. There was no pressure, addiction, or circumstance that justified it. I chose to see you as a means to an end. I chose to value money over you. I chose betrayal over honesty. And I lost everything that mattered because of it. I lost you. I lost my son. I lost my freedom. I lost my humanity. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for contact. I'm not entitled to it. I'm just saying I finally understand. I finally see the extent of the damage I've caused. You deserved so much better than a son like me. And Noah deserves so much better than the parents he had. I hope you two are happy. May Noah grow up strong and whole, like you. May you find peace despite everything I've done to you. I'm sorry I never said this properly before. I am really sorry. Marcus. I sat holding the letter for a long time, silent tears streaming down my face. They weren't tears of reconciliation. They weren't tears of forgiveness. They were tears of mourning for the son I once had, for the relationship that could have been, for the opportunities lost. But they were also tears of acceptance. Accepting that some things can't be fixed. That some people make choices that put them beyond redemption in the eyes of those they hurt. That it was okay not to want to forgive, even if Marcus eventually genuinely changed. I put the letter with the others, but this time, I felt a slight closure that I hadn't felt before. Noah is 11 years old now. He's thriving in ways I never imagined possible. He's in chess club, learning the violin, and has a close group of friends who come over regularly. He laughs, plays, and is a child the way every child should be. Occasionally, he mentions his parents. He asks how they are, if they'll be released from prison soon. I answer honestly but kindly, appropriate for his age. He has a right to the truth, but he doesn't need to carry a burden that isn't his. Grandma, he asked last night at dinner, when I grow up, do you think I'll be like them? That I'll do bad things too? My heart ached for him. Noah, listen to me carefully. I took his hands across the table. You've already proven who you are. When it was hardest, when you had every reason to stay quiet, you chose to do the right thing. That choice defines you far more than any genes. You are not your parents, you are you, and you are wonderful. He smiled, relieved, and went back to his noodles. I look at him now, doing homework at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly chewing on the tip of his pencil as he always does when he's focused. And I feel profound gratitude. Gratitude for your courage on that terrible day that saved more than just my kidney. It saved my life, my dignity, my future. Gratitude for the second chance to be a mother, to raise someone the right way, to build a relationship based on true trust. Gratitude for having learned, however painfully, that blood does not define family. Choice defines family. Loyalty defines family. True love, not the kind that exploits, but the kind that protects, defines family. And this family Noah and I have built on the ruins of betrayal. It's stronger, healthier, more real than anything that's come before. As for Marcus and Jennifer, they have 6 years left on their sentences. I don't know what will happen when they're released. Whether they'll try to make contact, whether they'll have truly moved on, whether they'll hope for some form of reconciliation, but I know this. I set my boundaries. I protected my peace. I prioritized my healing and Noah's above any artificial family obligations. And there's no guilt in that. There's no selfishness in that. There's just healthy survival and finally achieved self-love. This is my story. A story of betrayal that nearly destroyed me, but ultimately set me free. Of familial love twisted into exploitation. Of childlike courage that overcame adult cowardice. Of a devastating end that became a transformative beginning. And if you're reading this, experiencing your own family betrayal or abuse disguised as love, know this. You're not obligated to forgive. You're not obligated to maintain toxic relationships because you share DNA. You're not obligated to sacrifice yourself on the altar of family when that family sees you as expendable. You have permission to walk away, to rebuild, to choose who deserves access to your life, your love, your future. Because in the end, the only person you need to be at peace with is yourself. And I, finally, after so much suffering and healing, am at peace. I look at Noah, who looks up from his homework and gives me that smile that lights up everything. I love you, Grandma, he says casually, like he does every day. I love you too, my hero. I reply, my heart beating strong and full, because this is the ultimate truth I've learned. Royal family protects. Royal family chooses your well-being over greed. Royal family saves you from doors being kicked in and secrets being revealed. And I have that family. In Noah. In true friends. In a community that supported me. Marcus and Jennifer may have tried to use me, to diminish me, to turn me into a commodity. But they failed, because I am more than an organ to be harvested. More than a means to their selfish ends. More than a silent victim. I'm Aisha, survivor. Mother again, grandmother forever. A woman who learned her worth when others tried to deny it. And this woman is no longer the one who would have blindly sacrificed everything for someone who didn't deserve it. This woman knows how to set boundaries, protect herself, choose those who truly matter. And that choice saved me.